Here's what I think about Severance. I think this show has an opacity to it that is titillating to our imaginations. Like it is a blank canvas for us to project our hopes and dreams and desires for amazing, magnificent storytelling onto. And at the end of the day, this show is simply a canvas.
Let's talk about Severance. This is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion, so if you don't want the last 4 episodes spoiled, get off now, get off now, get off now. Now we'll leave it in. Skip, pause, go watch, come back, because I'm going to tell you what, I didn't expect zombies in the last 4 episodes.
I know, and goat fucking too.
Okay, that didn't happen, but you've been spoiled. Now, please. Everyone else, you've been warned. Let me just start by apologizing. I was so excited to finish the second season that I hyped it up too much again, just like Severance has been hyping it up. And then I've been rewatching it again with friends and my fiance, and I'm like, yeah, dang it.
Yeah,
when you excitement of watching it in one go versus week to week, I'm like, this is not.
Yeah, I think because when you texted me, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe these final 2 episodes are going to be like really something else.
No.
And then I watched the final 2 episodes and I'm like, I mean, they were good, I guess.
Good,
like
but
episode 9 was okay. Episode 10 was good.
Yeah, I've learned I need a moratorium on my excitement for like probably a few days because it really is biting me in the butt. And I'm going to say for everyone listening, you might have been as excited as I was for the first few days. And then you got to come down and be like, wait a second, what actually was answered?
Yeah.
Well, let's just talk about the last 4 episodes. So episode 7, 8, 9, and 10, we have reviews on our website all the way through 6. 7 is going to be the touch point of the season, and it is dividing because that is directed by a French woman, and it feels extremely French, and it has a very different tone, vibe, look to it, different styles and music all the way throughout. But also, I find a lot of people didn't like it. Did you enjoy that?
That's crazy because I thought episode 7 might have been the best of the season.
We have a mutual friend who specifically told me it was the most nonsensical episode of the whole season, and he didn't see why they threw it in. And I was like, that, my friend, means we're on different pages.
Throwing it in. I mean, I might say that about episode 8.
Yeah,
it wasn't nonsensical. It just wasn't. It was just like it could have been an email.
Could have been. Yeah, episode 7, Shikai Bardo, which is this Tai Chi. Did you catch what it was?
Some kind of martial arts Tai Chi thing. It's like dying before you die. Is that what it was? It was like ego death.
It's Tibetan Buddhist. It refers to the 4th Bardo, the Bardo of dying, the transitional state between the onset of death and the end of breath, where the human defeats the ego. Mm-hmm. The body and mind start to see the signs of death and continues until the last breath ceases. From the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Kind of cool they're wrapping in these things, and I say to Dan Erickson, once again, well done. He just continues to have a deeper meaning to things that seem to be tossed aside in the actual show. Directed by Jessica Lee
Gagne.
The whole thing is very much like angles and moves and transitions and lighting and color and things where I've had a lot of people say, I don't even know how they transitioned from this scene to that one in the way they did it. Yeah. And it's because this director was a cinematographer. And she's done a lot of stuff in Hollywood. I love the series, the miniseries Mrs. America, which came out a few years ago with Cate Blanchett. She did that. She did a short for Anthropology, Escape of Dannemora, Daddy, anime, a handful of things. A lot of them are French, and it shows throughout this episode. But tell me what you loved about this episode versus the other 3.
Yeah, this one had warmth in it. You know, all of Severance is just like, whatever town they're in is just locked in an eternal winter.
Kier, the town of Kier.
Yeah, the town of Kier is just locked in an eternal winter. It's just cold and snowy and dark. And in this one, we finally got some summer scenes of Mark and Gemma falling in love. And I don't know if they actually shot it on film or if they just applied a filter to it to like kind of give it some of that grit and warmth and graininess to it. Like definitely apparent in those flashbacks. Yeah, it was really great. Then you get to see like, oh, actually, right. Mark can be a really attractive dude if his hair's done right and he's got some of that facial scruff going on. And you're like, okay, now this makes sense why all these women are into him.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really good. It gave us some backstory. Like some of the stuff we knew, but it like Gemma dying or kind of dying, I guess, but like them falling in love, and it kind of shows us that there was a world before Lumen, kind of.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Lumen is still so wrapped up in mystery that we really still don't really know what's going on, like how the world has changed, how the world is different. If it's an alternative history, if it's like we don't really know what's going on yet. But this episode kind of shows that maybe there was a world before Lumen and Severance, and it was sunshiny and warm.
What's interesting is in the world before Lumen, we keep seeing signs of Lumen. When they're donating blood at the beginning and the blood bag or the little like storage thing has a Lumen little water droplet on it, you're like, okay, this is Lumen. So they were already in there. Then when they're going to the fertility clinic, we see the same doctor that's visiting Gemma right then on the flashback, Dr. Maurer, also Lumen. All throughout, we're seeing these Lumen touch points that say Lumen was there. It's a grander conspiracy than just they picked Gemma out of nowhere after she has the miscarriage. Once again, we said this is spoiler filled. Once she had the miscarriage and she gets the little packet, she's like, oh, they must have signed me up at the clinic. And that's when she sees the Shikai Bardo card about, Tibetan Buddhism. Lumen obviously sent her that, so they were attached to the clinic. They were finding the perfect candidates for their system. But I will say, even knowing this, it adds to the mystery a little more, but it doesn't pay off at the end of the season. You're like,
no, it doesn't.
It's just full of inferences. And here's another thing. The internet is aflame with tons of conspiracies. I mean, my partner was talking to me about ones from TikTok that I'm like, I already saw episode 10, so no, this is not right. That's right. Yeah. Okay, whatever. But they also have some like really wild ones. And a lot of it I think that I've seen or been drawn to is how each name or term is connected to something else. And yet there's a split of, does it actually mean Dan Erickson and Ben Stiller and them are that smart? Is it intentional? Is it not? Are they just throwing things out there that are intentional but we're never going to have paid off? I think it's the latter. But like the fact that Dr. Maurer is her doctor, Maurer in German meaning wall. Okay, he's the wall, like Berlin Wall. Who knows? When they go to the fertility center, it's the Butzemann Fertility Center, and Butzemann in German means boogeyman. They're at the Boogeyman Fertility Clinic.
Okay, cool.
Cool. People were bringing up all the names like, what does Mark mean? What does Gemma mean? Gemma in plant biology means the part of the plant that can split from itself and create two new plants. Okay, that's kind of paid off, but not really. All these things that are just like leaving us here. I mean, even down to Riken. And Riken, when you break it down, means like guiding light or voice of good. And it's like, well,
what did he even do this season?
Right? Absolutely nothing. There's theories about like maybe Mark's sister is also Lumen, and I was like, I don't think so, because if it is, then there's all these things in the same season that don't make sense because she's disproving it herself. There's just too many things going on. And at least for me in this episode, the most frustrating part is the fight between Dr. Rigabi, who's trying to reintegrate Mark, and Mark's sister, Devon. Their argument is one of the most nonsensical and plot forwarding mismatches I've ever seen. Devon being like, I gotta call Miss Selvig. Why would you call Miss Selvig? There's no good explanation for that. She doesn't even know she's fired, does she? And then Dr. Rigabi being like, no, you can't. Oh, well, if you're gonna do that, I'm just leaving with all my stuff. It just was frustrating, to say the least.
Here's what I think about Severance. I think this show has an opacity to it that is titillating to our imaginations. Like it is a blank canvas for us to project our hopes and dreams and desires for like amazing, magnificent storytelling onto.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this show is simply a canvas. And the excitement that we feel was generated on the inside of us. It has more to do with us than it does to do with the show. That is not to say the show is bad, because it's not. It's good. It's fun, to even be able to create a piece of fiction, a piece of media that we're able to project onto. I mean, it's kind of like Lost, remember? Like that's really well done. But the truth is, the hard truth is, this show is a mystery box in the J.J. Abrams sense of, I don't think they ever plan on opening up the box and telling you what's going on here at all. Like I remember at the beginning of the season seeing TikToks, people being like, oh, this is in a timeline where the South won the Civil War.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, maybe, And then you would just keep watching. You're like, fuck, no.
And so what?
So what? Like maybe, but like says who and for what reason and what evidence?
Yeah.
And so like the excitement that people are feeling about the show has more to do with the story making capacities of the human mind to kind of like project onto something and be like, oh my gosh, is this really going to be the story that's like fantastic and blah 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 blah, than it does with this show that is really good at asking questions and giving you a sense of mystery without ever having any intention on resolving the mystery.
And to build on what you're saying there, it's been a really bad Rorschach test for a lot of us.
Yeah.
The fact that they had the actress Sarah Bach, who plays Miss Wong, on Jimmy Kimmel, and I think it was Kimmel, and she full on had to say, it's a little racist that because I am of a general Asian ethnicity, everyone's like, boom, Gemma's daughter. Like, hold the phone.
Yeah.
There are more than one. There's more than one Asian person in the world, and there's more than one Asian person in all of Kier. What are we doing right now?
Yeah.
And it's a little frustrating to watch because yes, the South won the Civil War. Why is Seth Milchick in charge of the severed floor? And where's the other evidence? Anyways,
Yeah.
to your point, if it is just leaving us with a ton of questions, it's going to be a really frustrating third season because it is still a frustrating second season of uneven characters, uneven plot decisions. Rewatching, we finished episode 7 and moved right to. I watched all 7, 8, 9 again last night. And I was like, oh, 9 is not great either, but 8 really sucks, where we have all about Harmony Cobell going back to her town, Salt Neck, where Kier started. And we understand that that Lumen was making ether, and they had ether factories and ether mills, and everyone's still hooked on ether. And for all those who don't know what ether is, it's like a anesthetic or other, like it has a medical use, but it's also an illicit drug. It's easy to huff and get high. But so what? Like you're just watching and you're like, so what? And then there's Sissy, who everyone's like, who is it? Her sister? Is it her grandma? We see one little thing that says Sissy is short for Christine Cobell. Okay, maybe it's her aunt. No explanation. We have no idea why she's just like taking a nap on her dead mother's bed for like an
breathing
8 hours.
Her air tube, like it's
breathing through her air
deranged.
Like at one point, my friend was like, "What is she doing?" Did you see the TikToks about Patricia Arquette in Severance and her acting?
Yes.
I love those. They're like, hey, Patricia, what's your favorite line? Spits blood. You're like, that's kind of true.
Can you deliver this line normally? I will not. Fuck you.
I will not. The way in which she speaks, I mean, even her sitting down at the cafe, will flip my toboggan. It's Harmony Cobell. And you're just like, what is she doing? She's acting in a totally different series than what we're watching.
Like, what world does she think she's in right now? That's not Salt Neck. People from Salt Neck are rough and tumble.
And also, I don't think it's set up enough why she's so on the run. I thought she left because she was mad and they were like, come back to us. No, and she left. Okay. But then in this episode, it's like, are they after her? What happens if she gets caught? What caught for what? She's a disgruntled employee. Anyway.
I know. It's like they're doing good world building on some level. Like I have got to think that the writers have a Severance series Bible that they have that has all the world building complete in it and stuff.
Yeah.
That they're just like, they're not doing a good enough job of revealing any of it to us.
No.
Right? Like clearly Lumen has come into some towns and done this mining boom and bust thing and leaving a lot of towns like, stricken with poverty and stuff. But Lumen has to have more employees than simply Milchick and the big guy and like the board. And they're all mysteries. They're also question marks. And after 2 seasons, it's like, dude, give me something, give me something. Give me more than Patricia Arquette sucking on an air tube on a bed in Salt Neck.
Just didn't hit. And we get, oh my gosh, she is the one that came up with Severance. And James Egan said, you can't claim, this is your idea because here's knowledge is for all. Okay, so you're telling me this whole thing's about stolen trademarks and copyrights? That's what we're talking about here? Is this like Star Wars Episode 1 and it's a trade dispute? What are we doing?
I know. Maybe on some level, like when this whole show is over, we're going to understand that this show is a metaphor. It was an allegory for something. Obviously, the show is about the corporatization of America and how much it sucks to be a worker and I mean, clearly that's part of the subject matter, but maybe we're going to turn around. Life can't be understood forward. It can only be understood in reverse. And we're going to be like, oh, actually, maybe this show was fantastic because it was an allegory for X, for Y,
I guess.
I mean, okay, we're spending a lot of time ragging on the show, and I think we should press pause and honor the fact that this show is a show that has captured a lot of people's imaginations in a way that other TV just simply hasn't. In an age of like golden TV shows right now, like where there's just so much good TV out there, this show is kind of stood out. It stood apart from everything else, from being incredibly creative, a great concept, I guess good writing, maybe not great writing, and just having an identity that is unique. Really good.
Yeah. And I want to that point out one other thing. You know what the Nielsen ratings are? Nielsen?
Rings a bell.
Nielsen is the company that created the barcode all those years ago. And they have done all kinds of tracking of data. So there's they have 44,000 or something like that people in the United States who have a Nielsen box on their television. They have done this for forever. And so that's how you know what was the true number one show of the week, or who's watching this, or how many. They really just extrapolate that 44,000 data to the entire US. I hate statistics to that level. Exactly. I think it's kind of stupid, but whatever. So they're now doing it for streaming, and they're doing similar things with streaming. And there's a great episode on the podcast, The Town, where he has on someone from Nielsen to explain how we get these rankings. Mm-hmm. So they've been doing the top 10, which is all about streaming titles in the US across all channels. So they released to the public about a month later because I have to really get the numbers right. So let's talk about February 17th through 23rd, which is our month before now. Severance was the 7th most watched original streaming program across all services, with 649 million minutes watched during that week. Okay? It's crazy to me that you can have number 7 be the top of the conversation.
Yeah.
Which I know is kind of Game of Thrones, because not everyone had HBO with Game of Thrones. There was a lot of illegal streaming, but not everybody had it. For reference, the number 2 of that week was Reacher on Amazon with Alan Richardson just being a giant man with 1806 million minutes watched, whatever that becomes, right? Yeah. So triple. Anyways, so the viewership is a lot smaller, but the conversation's big because, like you're saying, it's confusing. And we want to know, like Lost, what the hell is happening? And if they don't land this in season 3, I don't know who's going to go back and watch, like Lost, after knowing the bad ending.
I don't know, dude. I want to. I don't think it's a bad ending. This is a tangent. I like the ending of Lost.
There you go.
Maybe this is something we talk about later, but I think Lost nailed it. I think people just didn't get it.
There you go. General populace. If the general populace does not like the ending of Severance season 3, they're not going to go back and watch it. But you're right. Others will go back and watch it.
Yeah. Okay, so episode 9.
Episode 9. Felt what like happened? Filler at points. Felt like filler, at least for me. Called The After Hours. The thing I liked was that Gretchen finally got her act together with Dylan G, the innie. Mm-hmm. Her telling her husband, I was like, why do people do this? This is so weird. Why did she feel the need to air it out as he's going to make a smoothie in the morning? Don't do that. But tells her real husband, Dylan the outie, hey, I went and kissed your innie yesterday. It was about a minute. Okay. Maybe it was longer based on what we saw, but okay. So she goes back and she's like, Dylan, nah, I talked to my outie. He's pissed. We can't do this. And he was like, well, he sucks. I'm the innie. I'm the good one. And I made you this little paper ring. And it was so heartbreaking to watch that part a little bit.
Yeah. It was because, I think one of the most successful character arcs this season was Dylan's.
Yeah.
Because coming off of season 1, he's kind of is like this hero of the MDR floor. And then you can see that Lumen's trying to manipulate him through his relationship with his outie's wife. And then he kind of folds on the team of wanting to be part of the group that uprises on the inside. He kind of folds on that. And then he gets caught up in this relationship with his outie's wife, which is technically his wife. I wish that there was more philosophizing on the, in the show of just you're actually the same person. You just forgot that. You just forgot that you're the same person. But I think the whole paper ring thing, it was so middle school to me. And that makes so much sense because these innies have only been alive for a certain amount of time. Their own existence is maybe on the order of months or years.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they're going to be a little naive. And the paper ring thing was super naive. It was cute, though. But then, like, you know, we've all been there where we've kind of borne our soul and had it be not reciprocated, and how, like, devastating that is. And he essentially is trying to commit some kind of suicide where he's like, I want to quit and I never want to exist again. Which was so sad.
It's interesting, too, because I know this is getting in the weeds and it's just a TV show. But I'm like, hold on. They don't take the rings with them downstairs, their wedding rings. We don't have television. We don't have movies. They don't have memories. Where does he even know to put the ring on? You know what I mean? Like, what?
Yeah.
And beyond that, how does he see this going? Is she going to come down there and live with Innie Dylan? I don't understand, I guess, where it was trying to go.
Yeah, you know, maybe this is kind of like, did you ever cross stitch growing up?
No.
Like cross stitching is like you gotta like a like a wood ring, and you've got then it kind of holds the fabric tight, and then you kind of like punch through and create like designs and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Basically, what it is on the front side, you get this image, and you get the thing that you cross stitch, and is beautiful, and then you turn it around, and you just got frayed thread helter skelter on the back end, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what Severance is, where it's like on the front end, you get this image and you're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. But then the moment you think about it for a second, you're like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening right now? Because, you know, I can imagine on some level that the severance process happens in your conscious mind and not your unconscious mind. And so maybe like information from one mind can cross the threshold by going through the unconscious mind, you know? Because like clearly they were doing some stuff in dreams where they were trying to like get information. I know there's a lot of theories, especially with Irv, that like Irv was trying to communicate with his innie through sleep deprivation.
Oh, interesting.
And it was the sleep deprivation was the way that it was a way to destabilize the unconscious mind enough that like information could slop over the edge between
he remembered the hallway.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Anyways, but the point is that the story isn't telling us any of that stuff.
No.
And it's relying on us as the audience member to try and come up with ways to make it make sense. And to me, that just seems like it's a cross stitch where on the front, it's this nice little pretty image, but as soon as you turn around, you're just like, what the fuck? There's a lot of frayed strands just all over the place. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
It reminds me a little of that Far Side comic, Cow Tools, where it was like an exercise in just being silly. Have you ever seen this one, the Cow Tools one?
It's got an entire Wikipedia page.
It's got an entire, Gary Larson, Far Side comic. His quote was, "The cartoon was intended to be an exercise in silliness. While I've never met a cow who can make tools, I felt sure that if I did, the tools, would lack something in sophistication and resemble the sorry specimens shown in the cartoon. I regret that my fondness for cows combined with an overactive imagination may have carried me beyond what is comprehensible to the average Far Side reader." This is like one of the most discussed and looked at things of just like, there's a cow and there's some weird ass tools. And for some reason, it just took over people's brains and they were like, what does it mean? Why is it so deep? Why is it absurdist? Why is it abstract? This to me is what's happening with Severance of, we're getting a bunch of cow tools. You know, it's half baked, or at least it seems. Maybe there is a Bible. When we get the novelization in 5 years, we're going to be like, oh, Dan Erickson knew all of this. There's a full history of Lumen. But I don't think he's going to give it to us. We get that Miss Wong at the beginning of this episode is on one of these internships, this fellowship, Wintertide Fellowship. Okay, cool. You know, like, was that necessary information? I guess. Now we for sure know she's not Gemma's daughter. Yeah. He has her crush her toy and she leaves.
And then that's it.
Pourquoi?
Well, like, what narrative device did that even serve as far as like character arcs? Like, she didn't get a character arc. Like, if anything, it just helped underscore Milchick's like yes man company man like persona. But we already knew that.
Yeah.
We already knew that. Like help us develop it more. Maybe show Milchick is distraught over having to send a child laborer away that, I don't know.
No, he's just annoyed by her. He just doesn't like her. He doesn't like these being undermined from the top and bottom. I don't know. I think the best part of this episode to me was probably two scenes, and the first one, people I think are reading way too far into it, and there's all these TikTok theories that I'm like, I think you're lost in the sauce. Was Heliar at the beginning cutting her egg in the most nonsensical of ways to eat it, and her father James just being like, I wish you'd take it raw, and it's like, that's gross, that doesn't sound right, that's disgusting. And she's sliced the egg into six completely equal parts, and she split it on this plate that's decorated with this child being torn between two people. Again, it looks artistic. For the artistic mind, ooh, what is this? And then you get nothing from the scene. You're like, all right, well, I'm out. I have nothing else to say.
Yeah.
That part, and then Milchek being so pissed at Mr. Drummond and finally letting a little bit of it out where he's like, simplify your words. That's too big of a word. Say sorry, apologize. And finally Milchek's like, devour feculence. That means eat shit. And I loved that moment. I'm like, that's what we wanted the whole season.
Yeah. And then, I mean, this is my complaint just about Milchek's character is it's like they're teasing us, and then it went nowhere. It went absolutely nowhere. And they trapped him in a box and didn't let him do anything in episode 10. Like it's not good writing to me, especially because if what it feels like they're doing with Milchek is he's going to have some kind of redemptive moment, where he's going to side with the innies and he's going to liberate them or something. But they just were teasing us with it, like the whole devour fecundance or feculence, whatever.
Yeah.
And then in episode 10, to have him like just go right back to being the company man who like in a moment of crisis does nothing but get stuck in a box, and B,
literally,
and B, just like do the company man thing and doesn't once show a moment of hesitation, a moment of self-reflection. Oh my gosh, am what I doing here the right thing? Do I need to change my allegiance here? Doesn't once show any of that in episode 10 after putting his foot down and like having some kind of a character moment. I'm just like, what order did they write these things in? Because it feels like they got the character arc a little backwards.
Yeah, and on the Mark Scout train, why was he having such intense flashbacks in episode 3 and 4 where he's reintegrating and jumping in between? He can hardly stay awake. And by episode 8, 9, 10, he's fully fine as just outie, just innie. I'm like, you had the hole in your head. Other than the 7 where he's just going on the biggest trip and emotional thing of his life, where's the reintegration? Why
So now
did you have a moment
he's
of
still severed. He's still severed. He's still disintegrated. Like, so Ragabi, the whole thing, it didn't do anything.
Yeah, at least with Pete, we know it was going a little wrong and he shouldn't have been walking around. He should have like stayed in one place or whatever till he was fully reintegrated. But it was like really intense, shocking. Oh my gosh, we're going back and forth. He can't tell where he is. He's walking the severed floor as his outie. We don't get that with Mark. It's like, wait,
No.
why don't we have any of that? We have Irv leaving in episode 9 on a train. We figure out the Bert is a goon. But do we really figure that out? I don't know.
I don't know.
He says that he wanted to be severed so he could feel innocent again, and maybe he has been killing people because that's what Bert's been finding out. Irv leaves on the train and just literally rides off to the sunset. I just don't know.
Yeah, this is me just being really hopeful and maybe naively optimistic that like season 3 is it, like maybe they've already written it and maybe they're already filming it and it's going to be a shock and it's going to come out in 6 months. They're going to do the bear thing where they actually film them back to back and we don't even know. And they're going to give it to us quick. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to give us the exposition, the context.
You are a very just optimistic person. The worst part is we're recording this Friday, March 21st, and everyone's already asking, and everyone has posted all their articles that they had written weeks before. So Variety, they got access to Dan and Ben. We did not. So either way, they're asking when they can expect the next season, and they're like, sooner than 3 years. But that's not enough for me.
Wow, what a low bar.
What a low bar. Like, when are we going to get it? Well, sooner than that, but you're going to have to wait.
In the future.
And the quote from, I believe it's Dan Erickson, we're hoping there are no massive strikes or pandemics or fissures opening up on the crest of the earth that end up delaying us. Barring that, I certainly hope we're going to get this one out a bit sooner.
Gee, mini Christmas.
That's not
Thanks,
That's
dude.
not a good sign.
No,
He
it's not.
goes, and then he finishes. But Severance has always been a show that takes a long time to make. We're proud of what we came up with, even though it took quite a long time. So there's that. So
Yeah.
we're looking at another 2 years.
Oh my gosh, I hate that for everyone involved. I'll be a student by the time this thing comes out.
You
Maybe.
will. You'll be wrapping up a master's. Who knows?
Wishing that I was severed.
Episode 10, I guess, before we wrap this all the way up,
Yeah.
Mark's outie and Innie at the severed pregnancy cabin, how they got there. The camcorder discussion, I wanted more, and it went a totally different direction than I was expecting, which I guess is good to subvert. It was fine. I guess I didn't see the discussion and the plot going in the direction it did of the fight between Audi Innie versus Lumen.
Yeah, well, there's probably a metaphor in that where the big old corporations succeed when we're divided against ourselves.
Literally.
Literally, because clearly the bad guy of this show is Lumen.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we're forgetting that, we're getting hung up on weird fights that don't necessarily need to happen. I mean, I can see why I can understand. I mean, number one, great conversation. It was a fun scene. The back and forth where they're recording messages to each other and having conversations. It was a fun scene. Narratively, it was exciting to finally have them interact with each other in some way.
Mm.
It certainly pushes on some of the philosophic nature of what I wish the show was going to be doing, which is, okay, you reintegrate. What is that like?
Yeah.
Who's in charge? Do you just have two personalities in the same body? You just have one personality and you just reintegrate it and you share all the memories? Because you have two distinct senses of selves in a body. What is reintegration like actually? So they're asking probably the right questions. And Mark's Innie, he basically understands reintegration as his death.
Yeah.
And which is fair. That's
Fair,
scary.
yeah.
Because that's kind of what Dylan in the last episode was hoping to accomplish by quitting, was that he never has to wake back up again and he can just be his outie all the time. And so that's a really, that's a fair thing to do, especially when Mark, being the naive little middle schooler that he is, if Dylan's, in middle school, Mark is also in middle school, has this, this love for Helly. And to be reintegrated, for Mark to kind of be a little callous about that, he's like, hey, that's cute. I love that you have fallen in love with someone down there. But with Gemma, it's like that, but times 10. It's really dismissive. It was dismissive, and I understood why it came off the way that it did. And Mark's Innie became combative after that. I get it.
Yep.
I get that.
Especially just knowing, like you're saying, the reintegration, who takes over. I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, is this a metaphor for losing your corporate job? And if someone is loving their job and has a persona there and they lose it, and maybe there's work romances or, infidelity, who knows, and that all goes away, what would that look like? It's literally a death of a self.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, could be fun. But yeah, Mark's outie, at times I'm like, how are you so unaware of what's going on here in the discussion, the conversation? I'm like, is this just one giant unhealed man? Which makes sense, for our time.
Yeah.
This could just be what the discussion is. But if Cobell is there and his sister's there, couldn't anyone offer anything else or sit down and have more of a discussion? Couldn't Cobell be like, listen, you're never going to be with Jaime Egan's daughter. That is the lie. Okay, now let's move on. Or oh, this is cool that you have this, but she won't stay severed. They won't let her stay down there. Okay, but there's no logical discussion. It's just
yeah.
Nope. Emotions back and forth.
And you just know that Cobell is hanging on to some exposition thing that would make all of this go away. And she's just choosing not to do it.
Watching the intro multiple times over. Yeah. There's things from the intro that point to specific plot points in each episode, and they artistically show it as a little, oh, okay, yeah, so she comes back. We see Cobell near the end of the intro where she's holding the book that has all the goats on it, and she looks up with the little hollow face, which is to me saying, oh yeah, she comes back, she holds some of the info. We know she created Severance. But I just sat there and I was like, okay. Was it enough to bring her back? Did she need to come back at this point other than to get them to this little part where he can have the Innie conversation? It just feels like we're kind of spinning our wheels with well, we got to move the plot forward somehow, but not give him too many answers. And I just struggle, like we've talked about, when the big fight could be saved with one conversation that someone can have.
Yeah.
It's not enough stakes. It's not
But
enough of
just
a fight.
it just doesn't have because writing, because we need
Yes.
plot. Yeah. I mean, we got something. We know like we we get told that their macro data refinement is sorting the tempers
Mm-hmm.
in someone else's mind,
Yeah.
which I guess makes sense.
Does it
um,
though?
because, well, I mean, on the one hand, like that's a good payoff because I know that I saw a lot of theories online that were like, oh, they're sorting the tempers, like that's what they're doing, and there's a lot of based on like imagery and numbers and lettering on the screen, like you could already put that together. And so
Yes.
I think that was a good payoff of like, oh, we were right. Their macro data refinement was we are sorting the tempers in the same way that Kier sorted the tempers once upon a time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We do not get told did Mark's wife actually die? Did Gemma actually get in a car accident? Did she get kidnapped? What is her importance? Why is it that Lumen is so fixated on her? Did they create the entire macro data refinement team to like con Mark Scout into coming down here and performing some severance practice on his theoretically dead wife? Is she a zombie? Like, did she come back from the dead? Like, what is going on? We get none of that.
None.
None of that. She's just down there, and Mark is sorting numbers, sorting the tempers to like for reasons, and then
For
and
reasons.
then and then Gemma is going into all these different rooms and having different severed personalities to go through her different memories, her traumatic memories, and on the back end of that, she was gonna die.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
not.
like they don't tell us anything,
They don't
and
give it to us.
it's like it's just the threat of mystery, which is itself a storytelling tool. Like I'm not going to say that it's not a storytelling tool, but when it's the only tool in your tool belt, like
It's a little
it's just
frustrating.
it's frustrating. It's a frustrating experience for an audience member. And you know what? Maybe you and I are not the normal audience member for the show because maybe we're thinking about it too much, you know?
Or
Or it's
not
just like
enough. Or
it's or maybe we're not. It could be maybe we're not thinking about it enough. Maybe general audience members just don't think about this kind of stuff, and they're just like, yeah, it was a good show.
I'm gonna tell you what. If
Yeah.
season 1 came out end of 2019,
Mm-hmm.
season 2 came out mid-pandemic, end of 2020, this would have been the best way to pass through the pandemic. To
Yeah.
say, you know what? I have
Yeah.
got all the fucking time in the world to spiral and to create a giant Charlie from Always Sunny board on my
Yeah.
wall and point to every single thing. The Lumen water drop. There's the water tower outside of Helly Egan's house. Kier. That would have been a great time. But right now, I've got too much going on. I go
Too
back
much
to
going on.
school. We got other shows to watch.
Yeah, and we live in a world where corporations are literally evil,
Yeah.
and we're like pedestalizing and weirdly mythologizing like people with cults of personality. So like, there's a lot that mirrors what's going on right now, and I want them to just take it over the edge,
Mhm.
take it to its conclusion. Not
Yeah.
its conclusion, but just like give me something, like quit treading water. Because like one my favorite shows are ones that just clip, they just move
Yeah.
episode to episode to episode. They're just driving the plot forward. And it just is like, whoa, this is really good writing. They know where they're going. They know what they're doing. This is great. Severance is fun, but it is an exercise in treading water.
You're right.
Episode after episode after episode.
Setup payoff is so great, and this has very little payoff. It's just so
Yeah.
much setup. And if they don't pay off a bunch in season 3, which I will argue, like you probably will too, they will not. They will leave a lot of it
They
in the
won't.
question box.
Yeah.
We are going to sit here and just be like, well, but what does it mean?
But the goat blood that they were going to harvest, it was for Gemma's something or
Why
bullshit.
do cows need tools?
No,
We're going to
it's
leave here with
just,
why do cows need tools?
yeah.
Why do they have waffle parties? What are the eggs about? Yeah, why the goats? We have in episode 10, once Cold Harbor is completed, scary Norwegian Mr. Drummond is like, go grab the lamb and take it to the slaughter bay. Okay, we have a lamb in here. We're like, why? And we have
Yeah.
Captain Phasma, Game of Thrones woman, tall as
Brienne of
can
Tarth.
be. who's just pissed off that Drummond is taking one of her goats over there, the lamb. Okay, she's pissed. We get it. We have a little bit of action. We have some blasting, comes out there blasting. But yeah, they put
To
to
what
quote
end?
Patrick Swayze, no one puts Seth in a corner. Why are you putting him in a box? They're literally
Yeah.
putting him in a box, so he just can't do anything all episode because they had no idea what else to do with him. And
Yeah.
we have the big marching band, which everyone's going to say is just like Defiant Jazz from last season, which I don't think it is. It's just awkward and weird. Why do we have a severed marching band? I don't know.
It just is. It is obscurity for the point of obscurity.
I think the iconic final scene is the part that I was like, ooh, this is lightning in a bottle for 2 seconds, but we're going to wait 2 years. I'm going to totally lose any steam that I have associated with Mark. Hold on, spoiler filled. We know Mark and Helly are running back down the severed hallway, leaving Gemma outside unsevered. That's the part that I'm like, oh, but now what? And we're just going to sit here twiddling thumbs for 2 years and going, I hope they're dead. I have no idea,
Yeah. Yeah. I did see I think so. Number one, the maybe the only, okay, not the only, but the character arc that I feel like really landed well was Dylan, right?
Yeah.
Dylan woke back up in the severed floor, had like a note from his Audi saying, "Hey, look, fuck you. That's my wife. Like, hands
Yeah.
off." But also, like, she clearly likes you because you are a version of me that has its shit together,
Yeah.
and I hope to someday be as cool as you. Which was like cool,
Yeah.
And then we forget about Dylan, and then Dylan shows up at the last minute to push a vending machine into the bathroom doorway to prevent Milchick from coming out of the freaking thing. And so on one hand, it's a victory for Dylan,
Yeah.
but on another hand, what the hell?
What the hell?
What the
Honestly.
hell? Milchick has so much opportunity, and you just didn't. Clearly, it is so obvious the writers didn't know what to do with him in this episode, and so they lock him in a box so he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, that is so frustrating. So frustrating. Although, and the one thing that I will say is stuff did happen,
It did.
Mark, we started the episode. Mark was in the cabin, the birthing cabin, having a conversation with his Audi. And then we end the episode where he's accidentally killed a man.
Yeah.
And
Mark.
he's
Good
covered
work.
in blood. And they successfully pulled off the heist to rescue Gemma from the depths of Lumen. That was stuff happened.
Finally.
Stuff happened.
Gemma is saved. The bloody finger in the little handprint sensor with the blood on there was kind of a fun little like,
that was fun.
You have to get your hands dirty to get unlocked into the door. Okay.
But like, again, to what end? Mr. Drummond is dead. Cool. Awesome. I'm sure there's going to be repercussions of that. Maybe.
Oh my gosh. The number of websites that are like, is Mr. Drummond actually dead? I'm like, here's what the show's doing to us. It's literally fucking with us.
I know. Did you see how much blood came out of that guy? He's dead.
He's dead. He has to be dead. And here's the thing. The arguments of like, did they clone Gemma? Is it a cloning op? Is that what the egg being split up into all these parts are? I don't know. Someone pointed out last night, one of our friends was like, each of Gemma's rooms was something that throughout episode 7, she mentions that she hates. She hates writing thank you cards as a whole thank you card room. She really, she obviously must be scared of flying. Okay, everyone's scared of the dentist. She hates the dentist. All these different fears that she has, it's just a living hell. All it does is make you depressed. You're like, she's just stuck in hell for years, wishing to be back with Mark. Is this a clone? How did he identify a burned body? Why would she agree to go down there when she's going to a night of categories or whatever charades? I don't know. It just is like a lot of questions the whole way through of like, well, we have no answer here.
I mean, Lumen's got a lot of ether. Maybe they
drugged
did
her?
The chloroform thing. They drugged her and. Because they have the ether, so I just did it. I just connected some dots to make sense of the plot.
She's just so docile. Yeah, it just. Can I show you one TikTok that I think makes the whole season worth it? I don't know if you've seen it. I reposted it. This guy, Sandgrain Studio, does edits, and I'm like, this is probably the best use of anything Severance all season long. I'm going to share sound. Okay, have you seen this yet?
Oh, yeah. Play it.
Do it, Seth! Come on. Sicker than your average. Papa twist cabbage.
Okay, we're done.
Here's what I think with the whole jazz band thing.
Yeah.
I think I think they needed to give Milchick another reason to dance.
They sure did.
I think that was the reason. There's no in-universe reason for the severed marching band. There is an out world reason, which is they needed to give him another reason to dance around because he's so good at it.
Trammell Tillman, who plays Milchick, he's 39 years old. I have never seen him in anything that I can remember. Here's the crazy part. He only started acting in 2015. So 29 years old, started acting in TV for a couple random side roles. He was in 6 episodes of Godfather of Harlem, which was a big enough show. Forrest Whitaker, part of it. Anyways, 2 episodes of Hunters. He has killed it in this show because he's just so good. But yes, him dancing really made the last episode. I was like, here we go again. Dance for me, Seth. Do it, Seth. Do it, Seth. That's just the best part of the finale. But again, this sounds like we're just ultimately shitting on this thing or speculating, if you will, all over this second season.
Speculating or feculating. Like, that's when season 3 comes around, that's going to be our series. Feculation.
Devour Feculence, a Severance podcast. I think the final thing we can say is give it a second watch. I hope everyone is hyped as I was the first time that it finished. And then don't think too much about it because it'll just send you in a spiral. That's a little frustrating.
Yeah. Like, this is a good... You watched Tenet, right? Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
Yeah.
Right? In there... Christopher Nolan speaks directly to the audience through one of his characters when they're first trying to like do the backwards motion in time. She's like, don't think about it. Just feel it. With Severance, don't think about it. Don't think about what's going on. Just feel it. Just let it wash over you. It's going to feel good. Don't think about it too much. Just let yourself project onto this opaque screen of treading water and have fun with it. Because here's the deal. They're never going to tell you what's going on with the goats.
Never.
And the sooner you can accept that, the sooner you can just enjoy this show.
The sooner you can say, you know what? Good show. Good job, Dan. Goodbye, Ben. The fact that this came in as a spec script, which I kind of love that idea, that Dan Erickson had this whole entire idea and was like, I'm just going to write a spec script and send it off to a handful of production companies and see who bites. And Ben Stiller was like, hey, it's too much of a dark comedy. Let's change this, change that. Okay, now we can put it out, and it's going to be this big, epic mystery that never gets solved.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, like I'm excited to see what Ben Stiller does next. Like, if he's not just completely wrapped up in Severance, because clearly what this shows, he's really good creating, cinema and like on scale and like creating a tone and a vibe on screen, like really well done. And like, I'm excited to see what and if he does anything next because I'll sit down for it. I'll watch it. Absolutely.
I know. I think I take issue as a boy who wants to be a writer who is struggling with the Dan Erickson versus Ben Stiller problem. But regardless, Red Hour Productions is the Ben Stiller's production company. You look back at what they've made and you're going to be like, oh, wait a second, they've made what else? The Polka King, Zoolander 2, Walter Mitty, which we love Walter Mitty.
We love Walter Mitty.
30 Minutes or Less, Tropic Thunder. We love Tropic Thunder. Blades of Glory. Tenacious D, it comes from his company. Dodgeball, Starsky and Hutch. He's had a wild run up before Severance. I hope that what this does, like we're talking about, is other people who have sci-fi, airy, thriller, just different TV will pitch to his company and be like, listen, what you did for Lord, what you did for Severance, I know you can do for me, or that other companies will take this as a challenge and say, damn, we need a Severance that's not exactly Severance, and they will get some other bold ideas because that would be nice.
Yeah, because, if nothing else, Severance is a bold idea, and that's what I think resonates so much with people is that it's TV that isn't like Jack Reacher, where it's just another one of those, like,
it's a CBS show.
Oh, strong man fights people for someone else. And like, we have a million of those that talk about cloning. Those are the clones. And so Severance, there's nothing like Severance, and it's a big swing and it's a bold idea. And I love that. And I'm stoked on the fact that we even get to watch this stuff and shit on it because it's so different. Yeah. And I want more of it. I want more of this feculence that we can just feculate about.
And you know what? And again, Apple TV Plus, we so badly want to be their podcast, has only had 45 million subscribers, which sound only. It's growing. It's not great still, but for 45 million subs to have Severance, the seventh most watched original show, that's a good sign. And I know by the end of the season we'll have more. And it's one of those things that people who didn't have Apple TV Plus when the first season came out, when the second season was announced to coming out, they got it just to watch it. I've had a lot of people who are holdouts, like Apple TV has nothing. I'm like, you're wrong. You got to check out some shows. And now I hope that the spillover after Severance will take effect, and we'll be part of that.
Go watch because more shows. You know what, audience members, if you just got an Apple TV Plus to watch Severance, guess what's around the corner?
The studio.
And you know what? You're gonna love it. It is so good.
And we're going to plug this since we're on the podcast right now. On the 26th, a mere 5 days from now, next Wednesday, you get the first episode of The Studio and our first podcast episode covering the first episode of The Studio. So buckle up, keep your sub, and watch The Studio starting next week.
Hell yeah.
You know what? Let's just end it there. Just like Severance, we're going to leave you hanging only 5 days. We're nicer than them. But listen to our episode on The Studio next week. Give Severance a watch. Talk about it, but don't get lost. Make your own conspiracy boards, and we will see you in a few days.